Hello everyone, thanks for checking out my tutorial on how I made my Bureau of Balance bracer for my Taz cosplay. If you need to find all of the materials I'm going to be using, they'll be in the description below. For now I'm going to just go through the basics on how I did it. I made mine look weathered and battle-worn. That's totally optional, and I'll talk about that when we get to that point in the video later. So, I reach over to my computer a lot because I'm watching videos as I do this, but step one is wrapping your forearm in, what's it called? Cling wrap? Plastic wrap? So that the tape isn't sticking directly to your skin. And then I use some masking tape to get down the first layers and figure out how tight I want it on my arm. And then I go over the whole thing with duct tape. And that takes quite a while. And I'm basically just doing like the first layer, making sure I set like where I want the top and bottom boundaries to be, and then very carefully cut it off with scissors. I pull off the excess plastic wrap. I can't say that word today. And then I go through and tape it some more. I'm just trying to make a nice stable base for it, so there's quite a few layers of duct tape, as you'll see. I just kind of keep going over it and over it until I feel like it's a substantial enough base. I wanted it to be strong enough to where I could confidently throw it at a wall and not worry about it like breaking in half or ripping or something, which is why I used duct tape as the base for it. I do a lot of that rolling just to make sure that it keeps its round shape. At this point I realized that it was going to be a little bit too small for my arm, so I added a bit more tape on both sides. I also was covering the inside and outside with extra layers of tape because I realized that it was a little bit wrinkled. And at this point I tried to do rivets on it, or not rivets, snaps, which was a big old waste of time. So like this whole part of the video is pretty much unnecessary because I don't know why, but I couldn't get them to work, and I eventually just got kind of fed up and decided to go back to my original plan. I'm kind of glad I did anyway, because after pressing to get the snaps to go down and pulling to get the snaps to come undone so many times, the foam that we'll be using later on would probably get either really squished in those spots or possibly tear away. So I'm kind of glad I ended up going the elastic route anyway. But yeah, this whole part is just me trying and failing to use the little snaps. And here I'm messaging people on Discord and trying to think about what I'm going to do to fix this. The rivet, the snap, the last one that I put on, actually crushed, which is why I had to leave, because I had to actually go and freaking rip that out, and then I had to put more tape over it to fix the little seam there. And then here I'm marking off where where the flaps are going to fold over each other. I ended up not using the glue, that was just front and center, so you can ignore that. And then I used chalk on some felt to cut out what I was going to use for my base, because I didn't want the duct tape to be directly on my skin. And then right before I was about to glue it down, I thought about looking up how to glue things to duct tape. The back is covered in a adhesive repressant, basically, so that it doesn't stick to itself, so you can unroll the tape. So to combat that, I ended up just using sandpaper to sand off some of it, and it ended up working pretty well, I think. And then I had to wait for a million years for my ancient glue gun to heat up, but then once it did, I just went ahead and started hot gluing my felt down, using my sketchbook as a base so that I didn't hot glue on my table. I was making sure to hot glue in lines going up and down instead of side to side, because when it rolls up to fit around your arm, you want to make sure that it's not going to be either holding a shape that's not round enough or tightening around your wrist in a weird way, if that makes sense. So I was making sure that the lines of glue went long ways, or short ways instead of long ways. And then I trimmed off the extra felt around the edges because I wanted to make sure that it was a clean fit and that it reached all the way to the edge. And then I just rolled it a bunch to, again, try to keep that shape make sure that it didn't stay too flat. And then I trace out what I'm going to use on the foam, and I'm going to end up recutting that later because I traced on the wrong side. And then I was measuring out with the bureau symbol thing. Loud car. And I'm just sketching that right here. I can, if anyone wants it, I can send you like the exact dimensions that I used, but I pretty much just eyeballed it and used this really tiny ruler to draw it all out, and I ended up drawing a little reference for it off to the side, so I was sure I didn't mess up, and then I used my X-Acto knife and I got all the little pieces out of the middle, and it ended up looking pretty cool. I was glad that I ended up using the ruler though, because even with it, it ended up having a couple little places where it wasn't exactly straight. So I was really glad that I ended up using the ruler. And then here's me trying to figure out the sizing on it again and making sure I'm writing down what needs to go where and where I want the elastic bands to sit. Making sure that the balance symbol is going to look good on it. The bob symbol. Alright, get off Discord, Danny. Let's keep going. Alright, and then the next step is to put the lines for where you're going to put the elastic. Make sure you plan out exactly where you want the elastic to go. Sand down the outside so that it'll properly attach, and then I went ahead and cut out some little strips for the top and bottom accents. Oh, and then my phone ran out of battery, so you missed a little bit there, but it was basically just me gluing down the elastic to the felt inside. For what I did was I made sure that it was glued all the way to the edge on this side, just so that I was sure it had a nice seal and it didn't go too far over onto the felt. But on the other side, you need to make sure that you don't glue the entire elastic down, because hot glue will make it so that it doesn't stretch anymore. So after making sure that it was really secure on all the edges and stuff, I went ahead and held it the way I needed it, and then I glued down all the elastic the bands, and then reinforced them. Then I tried it on my arm just to make sure I liked how it fit, and I was happy with it, so I decided to start hot gluing the foam. And I did it the same way I did the felt. You can't see a lot of it because I was holding it up to my face to make sure I was doing it right, but you just go one line at a time, press it down in between. You don't have to worry about rolling it for this step because it's already in the right shape. You can kind of see the glue lines on it right this second, but it's that you won't be able to see that for long, so don't worry about it. We'll fix that in the next step. I use a wine bottle at one point to make sure that it's gonna sit right. When you're trimming the inside of it, be really careful. I ended up cutting a little bit too much on the right next to my wrist, the upper part of it. And it's easy enough to hide, but I really wanted that seam to be as invisible as possible because this bracer is supposed to be on permanently. Once it goes on, you're not supposed to be able to take it off. So then I just went ahead and started gluing the edges on the top and bottom. Same way I was doing the other stuff, just go one bit at a time. Glue on the balance symbol. Those steps are pretty easy, I think. And then it was paint time, so I took out all my paints. I had a weird vision of wanting the the bob symbol to glow in the dark, which is, I have a little black light flashlight on my key fob, which is what you see, the blue light, that's what that is. My glow-in-the-dark paint ran very dry for some reason. I don't know why, but while it was in storage, it dried out quite a bit. I still managed to scrape some of it off, but I ended up not liking how it came out anyways, so I painted over it. And then I was taking a mix of silver and gold metallic, mixing those two together to make it a little bit more of a rusty kind of silver color. And then I was painting on that when I realized that I wanted to make it look battle-worn. So this is the part that you can skip if you don't want to do this. I ended up just very carefully cutting off the top layer of the felt, in some cases cutting all the way down to the silvery duct tape underneath, and just kind of like randomly placing some battle scars. and just putting it wherever I felt I needed it. That same mixture that I used before of the silver and gold, I mixed with a little tiny bit of black and put that around the edges and on the bureau symbol. I used a little bit of black and dry brushed it into the cracks to make them stand out a bit better. And then I went and put like an even like darker silvery goldish color in the middle. I ended up putting the darker metallic color. I mixed a little bit more black in and just weathered it around the edges and around the balance symbol to make it look like there was, you know, like natural metal weathering on it. And then that was it. I was done. So I like how it came out. Watch me pose with it for a little bit because that's how we do in this house apparently. It fits cool. If I would do it again, I would probably make it a little bit shorter because it cuts off just enough motion around my wrist that it's noticeable. So if I were to do anything again, it would be that. I really like how it looks. It captures very well. Like on camera, it looks like a big worn metal bracer. And then we do a little dance because we are white nerds in this household. So yeah, thanks for watching.